Welcome back to another episode of the Know Your Power podcast. I am your host, Julia Renee.
And Kendall Aaliyah.
And today I'm wearing purple eyeshadow because it brings out my brown eyes.
It does. I've heard
Kendall?
it's also good for green eyes, but I've never tried it because I just don't like color on my face typically.
I like wearing purple, but I don't like purple. I don't know why. I was doing it on my eyes and I was like, so not wanting to do it, but I was like, do it because it'll make your
it looks so good. It's also like a muted purple where you're not like bright purple in everyone's face.
It's like a lavender. That's like the only one that I had was a lavender. And I was like, all right, this will do. Let's just do this.
I like it. It's pretty.
But today we're going to be talking about the one thing that is killing your confidence. So, of course, there's probably a lot of things that kill confidence, but this one thing I have noticed in my life is one of the biggest reasons why I start to like lose confidence in myself, lose trust in myself, and stop believing in myself. And I wanted to use this example, and I wanted to say it in a way that would help you guys kind of understand. Like, say that a friend promises to meet you for lunch. And you pick out the day, the time, the place, and it rolls around and your friend doesn't show up. What starts to happen? This is actually...
Is Julia speaking from experience?
No, honestly, this is something that happened like in my personal life.
No, I know.
Like for real. And the person just doesn't show up. What happens? You lose trust in them. You stop believing that they're going to do what they say that they're going to do. Yeah. And also, like, one thing that might happen is that you might even be hesitant to meet up with them again because you might be fearful that, like, I don't even know if this bitch going to show up. Like, why should I?
Yeah.
The same thing happens to us. When we make a promise to ourselves to do something, be somewhere, or finish something, and we don't, we lose trust in ourselves, which is one of the biggest reasons we lose confidence because we don't trust ourselves anymore. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to like go through the cycle of losing confidence. And for me, this happened a lot when I was really struggling with binge eating, when I was starting my fitness journey and I was like trying, like I felt like I was, you know, when you're just like, I'm trying to do something and you just keep trying, but you're not actually doing it. And you just get stuck in the same cycle. So I feel like I was stuck in the same cycle. And the first part of it is like you make that commitment to yourself. So like, and usually when you make this commitment, it's like you're super motivated. Do you ever get that way where it's like, maybe you're laying in bed the night before and it's like a Sunday night and you're laying in bed and you're like, tomorrow is a new me. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. Like everything's going to be great. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm not going to eat anything unhealthy. And then that next day rolls around and you're like, who was that bitch? Who was she?
Why was she so motivated?
Why, like, what made her so motivated? And you snooze your alarm, you don't eat healthy, and you... and that's the second part of it is like you don't actually keep your commitment that you make to yourself. You snooze the alarm. Like you don't go to the gym.
Well, that's the same thing as making the plans and the friend not showing up to those plans is like that's the initial breaking of like you say you're going to do something and you don't. That hurts you. Yeah. That starts to break your trust within yourself too. The same it would with someone else doing it to you.
Yeah, because you were there literally a couple hours before, maybe the day before, and you were so sure and certain and confident that you were going to do this thing. And then immediately after, you go against everything that you said you were going to do, and you just don't. And you don't keep your commitment. You snooze your alarm, you push it off again till like the next day, or you skip the gym. And how does that feel?
Feels like crap.
Yeah. That's the next part of this like little cycle is that you feel like crap. Like you feel like guilty. Maybe you even feel a little bit like shameful of not doing it. Maybe you even, one thing that would happen to me too is that I would realize I was like, wait, it wasn't even that scary. Like one thing that would happen to me was like, I would commit to like doing cardio and then I would be like, break that commitment, not keep my promise, and then I would get off like the cardio machine within like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then when I would leave afterwards, of course I was like maybe a little bit guilty, but I would also be like, that wasn't that hard. Like you build, when you build it up so much in your head for it to be hard and you're there and you're like, oh my God, you start noticing like your breath. You're like, oh, I'm breathing really hard. Like, I think I'm going to die. I can't do this. And you make it so big that you end up like getting off the machine. You're like, it wasn't that hard. Like our body can actually go through a lot.
The same thing with like even getting to the gym. Like there's certain days where your motivation feels low. So like you wake up in the morning and like your intention the night before is like, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning. You wake up and you're like, motivation is lacking. You're being hard on yourself. You're building it up. And so you don't go in the morning and you're like, okay, I'm going to go in the afternoon. And I'm saying this because I did this yesterday. And then the afternoon rolls around and you're like finding other excuses and things you need to do. And like, oh, I still can't make it. Oh, the gym's too busy, like all these things. And then the night rolls around and you have that final decision of, do I go and show up for myself? Even though it's not how I plan to, I'm still going to do it. Or do I skip today and wake up the next day feeling that awful feeling of I should have went yesterday. I'm starting over, all of these thoughts we sometimes have. And I can tell you, I went yesterday at night at like 9:30 p.m. Are you clapping for me?
I'm clapping with my nails.
Nice. Nail claps.
I need to get my nails done so bad.
Don't even talk to me right now. They are disgusting.
Well, you've been using your hands a lot lately.
Yeah, with moving and stuff, they're gross. Anyway, so I went, and was my workout amazing? No, but am I so glad I went last night because I didn't wake up this morning feeling terrible about myself for not going yesterday? Yeah. So even if you do something on a lower capacity, that's still showing up and saying what you're gonna do, even if it's not great or not perfect or not what you had thought it was gonna be. That's still starting to build that trust back instead of feeling the crappiness and the guilt of not doing it at all. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely feel better when I go to the gym because I said I was going to, even if I go and I don't give it, I can't give it that much. You know what I mean? I still feel better when I do that versus I just decide I'm just going to give up on everything.
Yeah.
And then that spiral sometimes starts to happen where you give up on one thing. So you decide to just start continuously just giving up on yourself over and over. And it's just you spiral down and you end up going right back to the cycle that you don't want to be in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened a lot with me with binge eating where I was like, okay, if I ate off plan one day, then that would turn into 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And then I would just give up on everything, honestly.
Yeah.
And I would end up right back where I didn't want to be.
Even though you probably kept telling yourself like, oh, this is wrong. Tomorrow I'm going to get back on track. Because that's what I would do. And then the next day would roll around. And if I told myself the day before I was going to do something and I don't, it just amplifies those feelings even more because now you're like, I don't know, not just giving up on the thing, but also like letting yourself down.
Yeah. And you're kind of lying to yourself too.
Yeah. Because it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it's like lying to yourself also. And our brain is so smart. Like it'll make up so many things to make us feel okay about not taking care of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like we will argue to the ends of the earth for our limitations. Like it's kind of crazy. I remember when I was really struggling with getting into the fitness industry anyways and just like stop treating my body like crap. Like I was smoking cigarettes. I was barely drinking any water.
I can't believe you smoked.
I
can't picture it.
Living off. I mean, one of the things about being in beauty school, like it's kind of like a thing, like that hairstylists smoke cigarettes. I don't know what it is.
I guess.
But I was treating my body like crap and I was arguing so much for my limitations. I was like, I would make every excuse of why I couldn't do the thing, even though I wanted to do the thing. It doesn't make sense. I'm like, why would I be being like, no, I can't do that because of this. I can't prep because I'm too busy. I can't go to the gym because it's too far away. Even though this is something I'm saying I want to do, I'm arguing for all of my limitations. So weirdly, it's like, do you want to stay right where you are? Do you? But yeah. So that was the feeling like crap kind of part.
Yeah.
And then we're moving into the next part of the cycle after you're like already feeling so bad about, breaking the promise that you made to yourself. You start to lose trust in yourself. Now, I want you to listen to this. You start losing trust in yourself because you don't have your own back now. How does it feel when you have a friend that doesn't have your back? It feels pretty crappy. It feels even worse when you can't even trust yourself now. You don't even have your own back. You just stop trying and you stop dreaming, you stop going after all of that stuff, and maybe you even fall back into the habits that you were trying so hard to break. And that doesn't feel good.
It does not.
It does not
Trust
feel
us.
good. It does not feel good to not trust your own self. And then we're going into the next cycle of that is like your confidence starts to diminish. And what happens is that you lose the confidence in your ability to do the thing. You start doubting yourself because now you have ammo against yourself. You start pulling from your past and you use it as evidence to why that you can't do the thing.
Yeah.
The evidence is getting used against you now because you were trying to keep the promises that you were going to make to yourself, but you didn't. And I do this a lot too, where I would use my past of binge eating as evidence to why I couldn't change my behavior. So you start pulling from, well, you didn't wake up that one time in the morning. In the past, you weren't able to stick to a meal plan. You weren't able to stick to a gym routine. So you use all of those past experiences as reasons why you cannot change.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you're like, girl, I got the proof. You like go to yourself and you're like, girl, look, this is all the proof of why you're a failure and why you're not enough and why we can't ever change. See? But that's the thing is that we can change. Like we have the power to reprogram and to make something different of our lives if we choose to. And I was talking about this exact topic with the girls in the Know Your Power program last night. And it was the power of choosing which thoughts that you would like to attach yourself to, because our brain has a bajillion thoughts a day. And when we're feeling sad and unmotivated and not very positive, most of the times we're choosing the same negative thoughts over and over and over again. And it's a process of rewiring your brain to start choosing more positive, motivating thoughts that is actually true to you. And this is what happens when you are not keeping the promises that you make to yourself, is that now you're saying, oh, I can never get there. I'm the worst. Look, I haven't been able to do it over here. Here's the blueprint of, look, I'm showing you what makes me think that I can continue to do it.
That was me a lot of the time when I was like really in the thick of battling depressive episodes and having depression, is like I thought it was my entire identity because I was feeding myself those thoughts and I was voicing it constantly to anyone who would listen. I would tell them I was depressed. And if you're constantly creating that narrative, it's so much easier to stay there forever, that even when I was trying, quote unquote, trying to get better, I was still telling myself, but you're the depressed girl. Like, you're never going to make it. You could never be happy like these people. Like, you're never going to get out of this mindset. And it's like, okay, because I'm telling myself those things, I'm actually not ever going to get out of this. Versus if you even just believe in yourself, even the teeniest bit, and you hold on to that one thought of, I could do this, or I will do this, or like thinking of something in the future that you like want or know you need for yourself. And like, I needed help. I wanted help. I wanted to be this happy person that I knew was in there. And as soon as I started believing that about myself and starting voicing that instead, I started feeling so much better. Because I remember I used to even like, I don't know if it was a relatability thing, but if someone asked me how I was doing, I would always tell them like something bad going on. It's like, Kendall, just tell them you're good. Like, you're allowed to just be good. You don't have to tell them about this thing you're going through. You don't have to complain to everyone. You know what I mean? But that's that negative energy I was tying myself to and constantly talking about and living in. And it made it so much harder to get better because I was forcing myself backwards. In that sense.
You kind of like attach yourself to an identity, whether it's like, I'm the binge eater, I'm the depressed girl, I'm the girl that, I don't know what something else is bad. I don't know.
Whatever it is for your
we've all done that with like a certain thing that we attach ourselves to our current limitation, whatever it might be. And when we do that, like, you're right, it just make it a lot worse. And when we're in those episodes of like attaching ourselves to whatever it is that is bringing us down, there's typically a couple, like anywhere between like 4 or 5 thoughts that we continuously say to ourselves a day. And our brain likes to make it easy for us. And if we're saying these things over and over and over, it's like, let me help you. I'm going to make it easier for you. And I'm going to have these thoughts come up without you even trying. And it's our brain's job is to help us and to make it simpler and to make connections so that it's easier for us to just human. The same thing happens when you start saying more positive thoughts. So say you have 5 negative thoughts a day that you are always saying to yourself, you're not enough, you're never going to get there, you look like this, you look like that, and you're not doing anything to fix it. You're not doing anything to interrupt the thoughts that are just seemingly running amok in your brain.
You're letting yourself believe
you're
them.
You're just like, oh, this is the truth. Yeah. This is the truth about myself. And if you do a pattern interruption of maybe one time you think one of those thoughts and you interrupt it with a different thought, like an anchor thought of like who you actually are, the characteristics and the person that you actually know yourself to be, or the truth of the matter, and you interrupt that, then you're thinking 4 negative thoughts instead of 5. And then eventually, if you keep hanging on to that anchor thought, then you're only thinking 3, then you're only thinking 2, then you're only thinking 1. And now, instead of having days consumed with the same negative thought, it's like maybe it's only every other day, and maybe it's only every third day, and then it's like once a month. And it's remapping and rewiring your brain to think more positively because we have wired it to think negatively. Just like you have the power to think negatively and manifest things into your life that you don't want, we have the power to do the complete opposite. So, yeah.
It sounds simple, but it's not easy. And it's something I still do with so many thoughts. Those negative thoughts are always going to come up and they're going to flow through your brain. And like you're saying, it's if you pay attention to them or not. And I notice every time I do pay attention to one and I'm working on something and I'm like, why am I working on this? No one's going to want this, or I'm not capable of doing this. I immediately like check myself and I go, why are you doubting yourself? You know you want to be doing this thing and you know that it's going to be perceived well. Yeah. So like just trying to, even if it's forced, I'm like a huge fan of fake it till you make it sometimes. Even in the beginning, if those switches are forced. It does
have to be forced. When you're like really low, like you have to force yourself to do that. Like when I was in the lowest point I was, oh my God, it was almost like I couldn't even think it. Like my brain wouldn't let me think it, let alone say it out loud. Yeah. So it was forced.
It's hard in the beginning for sure. And even sometimes now it'll still be hard. I woke up the other day like having no motivation to leave my bed. And my first thought was like, just stay in bed all day. Like just stay in bed. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Like you don't have to show up for anything. Just stay in bed. And then that second thought, I was like, Kendall, you got to force yourself up right now. Yes. And you got to like show up for these things that you set out to do today. Exactly. So it's just that like conscious effort and like that push that you have to give yourself. And sometimes it's really hard internally, but once you're doing it for yourself, it's so much more gratifying than relying on someone else to motivate you for you, if that makes sense. Because you could have a therapist or friends or family tell you all day how great you are until you start like having those thoughts yourself. You're never going to fully believe it, you know?
Yeah. It doesn't matter how many people are like there around to help you and to be your support. At the end of the day, you have to rely on you to get yourself to do the things that you promise that you're going to do, that ultimately make you feel great, that make you feel energized, that keep you more joyful, that help you, that you live longer, that build confidence. Because whenever you don't keep a promise that you make to yourself, you start to lose confidence in yourself and your ability to achieve the goal. And this is why people get stuck in the same cycle of trying, I'm trying, and then they don't do one thing and then they let themselves just boom, go right back down. And that's the biggest advice that I can give you to break this cycle of making a promise, breaking the commitment, losing trust. You start doubting your abilities, then you lose your confidence. Is the answer itself is very simple. It's not easy though. Keeping the promises that you make to yourself. And when you don't keep the promises that you make to yourself, give yourself grace, because shaming yourself into changing never works. But loving yourself despite the fallbacks is how we evolve. Have you ever like shamed yourself so much into going and doing something that it makes it so much worse and you like
all the time
don't want to go and do it, or you just feel completely worse instead of better?
This one's a good one with my history with the binge eating, because the shame part was like majority of it for me. Like that feeling is the reason I wasn't allowing myself to get better, because I felt like I deserved staying there as like a punishment.
True.
So as soon as I was able to take that part out of the equation, the actual eating habits felt easy compared to like the mental habits I had created. So as soon as you're able to start building that trust back, and like you're saying, it's simple but not easy, and you have to start small, because I feel like that's where we set ourselves up for failures, when we go, okay, I'm going to do a 180 and change all of these things starting right now, starting today, starting tomorrow. And it's like, okay, or just create one promise to yourself that you keep this week and you keep it every day. That's building that trust. You build trust over the time. It's exactly like friendships and relationships. You don't just like meet someone and go, oh, I fully trust you now.
Let me tell you my whole life story. Let me give you all my passwords and everything. You know what I mean? It's like built over time. And that same thing happens with us. Like you said, it's that we little by little, we can build that trust in yourself. It's like, I said that I was going to drink a gallon of water and I drank a gallon of water. Like, what else can I do? Well, maybe how about I go to the gym today? And you go to the gym today and you start building that confidence and that trust with yourself, that now you know that you have your own back. Just like you would want a friend to have your back, your family to have your back. First and foremost, you need to have your own back. You need to know that when you say you're going to do something, that you're going to do it. And then there's also the flip side of like when you don't, and you human, because we all human, that you're going to give yourself grace and not shame yourself into like, oh, you're bad.
That'll never get you to progress in any way. Like feeling bad about yourself or being mean to yourself just keeps you where you are, instead of, okay, I messed up today, moving on, you know? Like it's that simple, but I understand we put a lot of pressure on things. And I was telling you before the first episode today that like January has just not been my month. It was a rocky start to the year. I was moving. I had all these things, that all these expectations I put on for the new year of I'm going to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to succeed over there and do that over there. Like a lot of it had to be halted for like moving took way longer than expected, way more energy than expected. My gym routine hasn't been consistent. My eating habits haven't, my working habits haven't. And instead of sitting here and beating myself and be like, January sucked, now this whole year is going to suck. And I just give up and I'm not going for any of my goals anymore. It's like, okay, yesterday I finally have everything unpacked. I got to settle in a little bit. I got to go to the gym and I went and it felt great. And I told myself I'm starting again. I don't care how late it's been or how off your routine you've been, just start again. Just start building that trust again. Today I was like, okay, gym again, check. I'm also going to meal prep tonight because it's been a really long time. So now that's two things that I'm telling myself I'm going to do and I'm going to follow through with, so that tomorrow I can wake up being proud of myself for the last 2 days instead of feeling that guilt and shame that I've been feeling a little bit for the past month. But again, I think just with practice of not beating myself up over these things is allowing me to have the mindset of, oh, just get back on track, instead of like, you are terrible, you are a fitness fraud, like you have to feel bad about this. Like that's so unnecessary. It's not going to get me anywhere.
Like it does make it so much worse, because it's like we almost are like, yeah, you are the worst. Okay, let's continue to do things that make me feel the worst. That's always what happened to me. It's like you almost start to believe that you deserve it. You deserve to feel this bad.
Oh, that's such a good word of the deserving thing, because on the flip side, I started making my positive thought of like, I deserve this life. Instead of being like, I don't deserve to be happy, it's like, oh, I deserve all of these positives, instead of thinking I deserve all of these like punishments, if that makes sense.
True. That's a big thing. So right now there's probably something that you've been promising yourself that you're going to do, that you're going to go after, that you're going to complete even, and you just keep breaking the promises that you make to yourself. So I want you to just imagine, like, what could your life look like in a year if you started to build that trust back into yourself? You knew that you had your own back and you kept the promises that you make to yourself and you were your word. Imagine what would change.
I love that exercise because I know how much would change for me and for you and for everyone listening.
Yes, for us too, for sure. I want this to be y'all's homework for tonight, your journal prompt. Think about this. Write about this. What could my life look like in a year if I kept the promises that I make to myself? That simple. Come back. Show me your homework. No, I'm just kidding. No, just like, if you complete it.
Turn it in for a grade.
Turn it in for a grade. No, I'm just kidding. For real, do that.
I will say, our New Year's podcast, we had people like write out their goals in the comments, and I loved it. So if you want to share with the class, you can include just like one sentence maybe of what your life would look like in a year. Because I think that's fun. I liked reading them.
We love reading them for sure. But really think about that. Put that in the comments. Or if you want to be more secretive, DM us your answer, whatever. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Please have your own back.
It's important.
Yes, and we love you all so much, and you are more powerful than you think.
Bye.